everyone. My name is Michael, and I'll be your host for this evening. I just have a couple announcements before we begin. This week's movie is 42, and it's playing tonight through Saturday in Summers Auditorium. Next week's live event is comedian Leclerc Andre, and he's performing Thursday, February 18th at 7:30 p.m., and that's going to be on Zoom and YouTube Live. And the movie next week also is Just Mercy, Wednesday through Saturdays when it's playing in Summers Auditorium. Please be respectful and enjoy the show. 19-year-old Nia Mooney fell in love with spoken word poetry in the 8th grade. Since then, she's won several competitions, including a state championship title. Her poems are featured in the Still Waters Collective Anthology and in The Muse. Her pieces are part of her experiences, hopes, passions, and dreams. Now, give it up for Nia Mooney.
I didn't have my mic on. Okay. Hello, everyone. Are we good? Okay. So my name is Nia Mooney. I'm a sophomore at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Thank you so much for coming tonight and just taking time out of your day to tune in. I will be performing today original pieces that I've written. It'll be some, kind of memorized. Some I'll be reading off this paper, but it's going to be as interactive as possible. And I really, really hope that you can take something from these pieces, and I hope you enjoy the show. So my first poem is entitled Milwaukee Public Schools. I will be giving disclaimers before all my pieces to just kind of give you guys some context. So Milwaukee Public Schools, aka MPS, again, it stands for Milwaukee Public Schools. I am a product of Milwaukee Public Schools. I was, from 9th through 12th grade. And what inspired me to write this piece is I was really angry at my school system. So this was my sophomore year of high school, and I literally was missing 3 teachers. I didn't have an English teacher, I didn't have a social studies teacher, and I didn't have a math teacher. So these are, again, core subjects, core, things I need to know to prepare me for college. So I just kind of express all that anger and put it into this piece. So yeah, it's called MPS. The government fixes roads and basketball stadiums before they fix school systems. No one knows what goes on in MPS, the never returning teachers who expect us to know a curriculum that's broken and inconsistent. How am I going to nourish my Garden of Eden if I'm getting spoon-fed nothingness water? I mean knowledge, gaping holes in degraded soil. I mean content. Didn't I tell you I wanted to build a garden that Adam and Eve will be proud of? It'll be so beautiful, distracting them from their barren bosoms. My flower beds will consist of tulips, roses, roses so red the old saying will go. Roses are red. Roses are so red, I didn't even notice blue, and sunflowers that'll outshine the sun, its light, spilling into the cracks and imperfections of the pavement. I want to build a garden. I mean greenhouse. I mean foundation. I mean a better life for myself. They're trying to plant the seed of success. But what if the seeds of my ancestors aren't able to produce a garden? How do I make one out of broken weeds and promises despite this? I hope someday my flowers will blossom. They aren't like the rest, They have thorns of potential and purpose. I hope someday they prosper. Thank you. So that was my first piece. But yeah, very important piece. It was like, thank you for the snap. This piece was just, again, very important to me. It was like my power, step out piece. I feel like this was the time I finally stopped using so much in rhyme, and I was actually trying to incorporate metaphors and imagery. So very, very special piece, hold it near and dear to my heart. So my next piece that I'll be performing is entitled Relationships. I wanted to just kind of look at relationships from the lens of infidelity, and just kind of see it from that perspective and just touch on some things I kind of observe in certain couples, observe in people that I know, don't know, and how experiencing an infidelity, experience getting cheated on, and how that affects the relationship and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoy this piece as well. This is called, again, relationships. Some people's relationships are dysfunctional, yet clean cut. Every time they argue, my brain instantly translates conversations and instantly tries to communicate to them what they're actually trying to say to one another. Conversations usually goes like this. The girl in the relationship says, with venom dripping from her lips, The girl in the relationship says, where were you? With venom dripping from her lips. And this actually means you've been gone for more than enough time that I'm comfortable with. The longer you're gone, the more triggered I become. You see, I've forgiven you, but there are still sheds of my broken heart that I find you're stepping on sometimes. And the male in the relationship replies, I was at work all day. Even though he really means to say, what day can I mark my calendar? What day can I mark on my calendar of when you'll move past this? I have worked so hard to prove myself worthy to you. When are things going to go back to normal? I hope one day these relationships and these couples can find a new normal. Infidelity is a hard place to come back from. Thank you. So that was my second piece. Thank you. So my third piece, super, super near and dear to my heart. So my senior year after high school, I was able to go to South Africa. So I was gone for about 2 weeks, and it was my first time traveling out the country. It was my first time getting on like a plane ride for more than 3 hours, because the only place I've been is like Texas, and the other different states I travel to, I usually do a road trip with my family because that's what we prefer. So this is the first time I traveled for 2 days. It was so crazy. Had a little anxiety getting on the plane because I didn't understand how something so big can fly. But so this poem is just my experiences in Africa. It was so many different cultures. It was so many different beautiful, beautiful people. I remember just taking pictures of my friends and a hyena coming up, and he just was wandering around like it was a dog. So I was like, he was a dog. So I thought that was funny. So many different cultural things, we're not used to animals just roaming around. But of course, depending on where you are, it was a more rural area. Of course, in the inner city in South Africa, there aren't animals roaming around. But yeah, so this poem is entitled Africa. I wish I can carry South Africa around with me in my back pocket. Even though it's the 25th largest country in the world, it'll allow lightness in my footsteps. I'll focus more on the time well spent than the time taken for granted. Because in Africa, time moves in slow, beautiful waves, and I was finally able to bask in its waters. It felt like I was inhaling life for the first time and exhaling just existing. I finally learned the true meaning of taking everything in. My body shook from all the smells, scenery, and knowledge that I was opening myself up to. Who knew traveling could be so amazing? I wish I could see those children in the township again. Their joy radiated from their brown bodies and bled into me. Just being part of their company made me feel the power of love. They were hesitant at first, but their little fingers intertwined with mine, and we began to break bread and exchange laughs and stank eyes. I didn't want to let them go because I felt a piece of myself leave with all 30 of them. I will always keep a photocopy of their smiles in the corners of my dimples. I wish I can live on top of Table Mountain. I could trick myself, or I could tuck myself into the jagged edges of the orange rocks. And when I awake from my slumber every day with a view that takes my breath away and shifts it back to the States, I can never see so much beauty occupy so much space. God must be really pleased with his artwork because he was the first Picasso. This earth was his canvas. And my body erupted into a symphony of color. If you didn't learn anything from this poem, I hope you realize that this world is much bigger than me and us. There are other people on the other side of the planet that worship differently than you, are restricted by what clothes they can wear out in public, are owned by the men in their families, and various other things. Africa changed me, and I know exploring the world's gifts will change you too. Thank you. All right. Thank you for the snaps. So this next poem is about my twin sister. I am a fraternal twin, and growing up with a twin was very interesting. I pretty much had, someone to do life with from a very young age. Of course, we were the same age, so we were able to experience a lot of the same things and go through it together, so that was really great. Fun fact, my twin is probably the person that I write about the most. She has inspired me in so many different ways. And I wrote this piece in particular. She was leaving for college. This was our freshman year. She was leaving for college, and she was going to UW Stout. And she left 2 weeks before I did, and I was so sad. It felt like somebody broke up with me. Like, I was so sad. I'm like, how are you going to leave me with these crazy people? No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, I was really sad, and we were driving back home from UW Stout. We're driving back to Milwaukee. It's like 4 or 5 hours away. And our tire, came off. And we were at the gas station, and I was literally writing this poem while, my parents were trying to figure out the tire situation. I was writing this poem, just really sad, just trying to get all my feelings out. I felt abandoned. This poem is entitled Twin. You are my heart. You are my soul. You my other half. Without you, I cannot be whole, baby. Today, I said goodbye to my confidant, my best friend, and my #1 fan. She always had a "How was your day?" dancing on top of her lips every time I came home. She stripped me of my baggage from the day and wore it proudly on her shoulders. My twin sister is the physical manifestation of my heart. And she's walking around a campus right now. And that just baffles me because yesterday it felt like we were roommates, taking baths together, reciting every line from White Chicks and holding hands in Walmart. When people ask me what it's like to have a twin sister, I tell them that we don't always finish each other's sentences. And no, we aren't identical, and we are different in so many beautiful ways. However, she is an extension of me. Some days I feel one-dimensional and dull, but she reminds me that I'm color, and I come in so many different hues and shades, which molds me into an abstract goddess. This pigment is a symbol of passion and pain all rolled into one. Now, isn't that art? She reminds me. My dear twin sister, I love you, and I can't wait to see where this next 4 years takes the both of us, because you deserve every star in the sky plus tax. Thank you. That's the end of that piece. So my next piece is a free write. So it's just basically, I was given 5 minutes to write a piece. And the prompt was to write about anything. And I hate prompts like that because it's very broad and I have no idea what to write about most of the time. So yeah, this is the poem that I came up with in those like 5 or 10 minutes or so with the organization I was a part of. So it's entitled Free Write. Okay. When people ask me to write about anything, my mind hears the sound of a gun at the start of a race go off. My thoughts start off in a fast sprint, and they start to compete for the best topic. And that's all I have for that poem. Sometimes, I make really short pieces, and that'd be it. I might finish it, probably won't. But yeah, so that's like my free write. As you can see, thoughts were all over the place. Started it and did not finish. My next piece is entitled Morning Breath. I don't really remember. I think I was in like my sophomore, junior. No, I think I was a senior in high school when I wrote this piece. I just really wanted to emphasize and glorify flaws. I feel like, due to social media, due to, expectations that we have on other people, that we don't even realize that we have. We expect each other to be perfect. We just assume everybody's doing good. When you ask somebody how they're doing, they say I'm doing good. So, the piece is entitled Morning Breath because it's something we all experience when we wake up in the morning. And even though it may be gross and even though it doesn't smell the best, it's like we're still human. We're all still beautiful. Our flaws, that's what makes us so beautiful. That's what makes us so unique. So that's why I wrote this poem, to just shine light on all of our beautiful flaws. So this poem is entitled Morning Breath. I woke up, stomach empty, morning breath creeping from the corners of my mouth, and I wonder why anyone thinks they wake up flawless. Even though there's beauty and imperfections, my eye boogers sparkle like the dawn of the new day. My bonnet is the latest and continuous fashion trend on the runway, and my morning breath has superpowers. And anyone who encounters me at 5:32 in the morning is destined for greatness. My toothbrush is destined for greatness as I scrub the plaque-infested gardens off my teeth. I stare at my reflection in the mirror. And even now, at 5:33 in the morning, I'm still beautiful. So yeah, that is the end of that poem. My next piece is entitled Acknowledging Blackness. So my inspiration behind this piece is I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said when he went to the store, he's from Appleton, he said when he goes to the store with his mom, she usually says hi to all he's black. She usually says hi to all the, black people she sees in the convenience store or whatever. And he asked her, like, why do you do that? Do you know them? And she's like, no, but, I'm just acknowledging them. So I just kind of played on that concept of just acknowledging people, especially being a person of color, being an African-American female at a PWI. I just wanted to kind of play on the idea of being seen and just having those little social cues that you let other people of color on campus know that you see them, even though, they haven't felt seen all day or they haven't felt heard. So this is why I wrote this piece, is just to acknowledge blackness, acknowledge the people of color on this campus. It's mainly targeted towards women, but of course you can apply this to men and other people. So again, this poem is called Acknowledging Blackness. Hey Queen, what's up Tasha? Sister Mans, hey sister girl with the dope sneakers and graphic tee, I see you. Hiding in the back, trying to make yourself look small. Is your body mad that you fold yourself into tiny pieces? I almost stepped on you on my way to your side of the classroom. I wish you would stop fellowshipping with the dust bunnies. I just wanted to acknowledge you because it seems like nobody saw you today. Because it seems like nobody saw you today. Attending a PWI got you going through the motions, and your goal is just to make it through the day. But girl, I don't want you blending into the white crowds. You were made to shine. So that is the end of that piece. So this next piece is called Mutt, M-U-T. I was inspired by my little cousin. When I first met her, we were at my uncle's house, and it was like a zoo. He had like birds and dogs, and the guinea pigs just had babies, so it was baby guinea pigs, and it was just so many animals in the house. It was a kitten. We was playing with the kitten. So when I first met her, we were just playing with a kitten and passing the kitten back and forth. And this is when, we were really young. And then I saw her a few years later. I was volunteering at my dad's middle school, and she was one of his students. And I saw her, she was doing really good and stuff like that. And then and at that time, she was around 14, 15. And then when I saw her again, it was about the next year, so she was still around 14 and 15. And I saw that she was holding a baby, carrier in her hand. And I was like, okay, she has a lot of siblings, so maybe it's her niece or her nephew. I don't know. I don't want to judge. I don't want to assume. So I later found out that she was holding her child. And again, she was only around 14 or 15. And I wrote this piece because I felt like I failed her. I felt like, I could have prevented her from getting pregnant somehow. I could have done more. I could have called her, whatever. So this piece is mainly just me expressing kind of my guilt and just, not really my guilt, but just kind of remembering the potential in her, even though, she is a young mom now. But yeah, she inspired me to write this piece, and it's called Mutt, which is just a shortened version of her nickname. Can't share her nickname, it's very embarrassing. Not going to do that to her. But yeah, this piece is called Mutt. At the break of your adolescence, you were beautiful. The solar system was your paint room. The vast open space was your canvas. You painted beautiful finger portraits of the rings of Saturn in the moonlight. They always seemed to intrigue you. I never did ask what you wanted to be when you grew up. I wasn't able to get close to you. Your mother feared I would become just like you, and I never knew what she meant. The girl I saw drew constellations in the fog of the windows. Your eyes beamed with lights and hope. I knew someday you wouldn't be just another product of unemployment lines and cashing Social Security checks, and then I saw you. You carried a dwarf planet inside of you. It bathed in your waters, baptizing in excellence. You gave birth to a child when you're still one. My uterus aches when I think about the amount of eons of labor you endured. When you conceived that child, did you see me? Did I not hit hard enough on the walls that you built to protect yourself from love? Do you still dream of the North Star at night? Taking refuge in its glow, it shines just as bright as your eyes once did. I pray that that planet changes you. You finally have a sun to revolve around. Thank you. So this next piece is entitled My Faith. I am a Christian. I have been a Christian. Well, I've been saying I've been a Christian, my whole life, but I just started actively, being about the Christian life. I feel like the start of quarantine, a lot of us, got new hobbies, discovered a lot of new things about ourselves. Some people didn't, and that's okay too. But what I did over quarantine is that I got closer to God. I built my relationship with Him. So I, of course, wanted to include some poems about my faith, about, things I believe, and yeah, my experience with my faith. So this is entitled My Faith. Shocker there. But yeah, this is entitled My Faith. My Jesus reigns holy. He sacrificed himself for me. No matter how many piggy banks I fill, I will never have enough money to repay the debt that Jesus bought me for. My Jesus had hair like mine and skin that was perfect diamond dust. My Jesus is my friend, my comforter, my provider, my everything. He makes me feel like I can always take a step forward and not worry what's in my rear view mirror. He always reminds me that I am not my past. I am made new, made whole, made me happy to look in the mirror again. My Jesus stripped me of the bad and added onto me things that were holy, everlasting. I love my God. And that is the end of that piece. But yeah, as you can tell, I love Jesus. So, okay. So my next poem, again, another faith-based poem, is entitled Storm. I had to write a poem for a seminar. If you don't know what a seminar is, it's basically like a women's convention, of Christian women's convention. No men are allowed. If men do come, they're going to look at you crazy. But I had to write a piece for the seminar because every event that my previous church had, of course, they wanted me to perform. So it took me a very long time to write this. I was like trying to write it. Literally, I finished writing this poem 2 days before the actual seminar. So yeah, because I was kind of kidding myself. I was trying to write the poem while I was like sitting around my friends and stuff, knowing good and god dang well that I wouldn't be able to focus, but I got it done. So this poem is entitled Storm. I wonder how the table felt when Jesus flipped it in the temple. Did it feel shaken, worried? Did it turn to Jesus and question his sovereignty? I feel like Jesus flips us and turns our world upside down because he wants to see if we will be carried away with the wind or our own fears and insecurities. He wants to know if your faith can compare to that of a mustard seed. Will you be rooted enough to stand firm in the midst of a hurricane, in the midst of the storm we call life? Jesus can be your yellow raincoat. He can be your emergency survival kit because with Jesus, you have everything you need. When you seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, all things shall be added onto you. Jesus is turning over the tables in your life to uncover some things, to heal some things. So fear not, because Jesus knows exactly what he is doing. Thank you. So this next piece, it is called My Cherokee Blood. My dad or one of my cousins came over, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. One of them came over and they were just talking about our family's bloodline and stuff like that. And, my mom also mentioned that in her side of the family, we have some Native American, bloodline or family and stuff like that. I'm sure it's way down. But, they were mentioning the Cherokee tribe and stuff like that. And I was just thinking and stuff, and I was like, dang, the whole goal of the Native Americans, being pushed out of their homeland and being forced onto reservations and stuff, the goal was for them to be forgotten, for their culture to be forgotten, for their language. They were, forced to go into schools that assimilated their whole identity. So I just really wanted to give Native American people a space, on the stage with me. I wanted to give them a voice because, again, I can even admit that I forget about Native people, unfortunately. And again, that was the whole purpose, was just, for them to be forgotten. But want them to know, if there's any Native people watching, you are not forgotten, and you are valuable. So this is the poem I dedicated to my Cherokee ancestral lineage. Yeah, it's called My Cherokee Blood. My ancestors spoke flowers, like the off-purple lipstick shade located in the back of aisle 5 in the darkest corner of a thrift shop. Their tongues were placed in the darkest corner of a thrift shop. Their heritage was seen as a collector's item, something old, something new, something borrowed, something taken. Pocahontas got it all wrong. Who gave Disney the power to rewrite history? I don't recall a happy ever after where everyone's dreams come true. Do you think Native people still dream? Their tongues, their language, their everything was stripped from them and nobody talks about it. But today I stand with war chants on the tip of my tongue, the color red dripping from my nostrils. No amount of blood that leaves my body will ever amount to those that lay lifeless, broken, abandoned after a battle. I mean genocide, I mean battle. My mom asked me what I wanted to be for Halloween, and I said not Native, because to be a part of this history is more of a trick than a treat. I can't wear this costume because I can't stand to carry this burden of yesterday's sorrows on my shoulders. Do you think Natives can take their masks off at night? Why is this history placed in the darkest corner of a thrift shop? Why are they compared to the off-purple lipstick shade? When did they become cheap, not sold for their proper retail value? They don't belong in a thrift shop because they are not worthless. Thank you. So my next piece, it is entitled A Letter to My Biology or Bio 120 class. So I'm a sophomore, and I have certain requirements that I have to fill. And I have a Bio 120 class, and not only do you have to take a Bio 120 class, but you got to take a bio lab. So you are taking 2 classes, and I was just like, I don't understand. So it's a lot of work. I probably should have looked on the Rate My Professor thing first before I did it, but it's okay, I didn't. So it's a lot of work. I have a lot of assignments for the bio class. I got a lot of assignments for the lab class. So I just had to express my frustration because it was so confusing, and then you need a code for the bio lab class, and it was just a lot going on. So I wrote a letter to the class, not to my professor, but just to the class in general, because I hate science. I don't need science, but it's okay. Okay, so it's called A Letter to My Bio 120 class. Dear Bio 120, you better be glad that you're a requirement I need for graduation. Sincerely, an overworked college student. That was the end of the piece. I wasn't wasting any more time with bio. So yeah, that was my frustration with that. My next piece is entitled Police. As a woman of color, as an African American woman at a PWI, it is my duty to include some type of social justice pieces or, something in that regard. But funny enough, even though this poem is about police and police brutality and stuff like that, it actually stemmed from an old friend of mine. She was getting harassed. She's also black. She was getting harassed for the whole year. So both, first and second semester by a white male who was in the dorms. And, she went to her RA. RA went to her bosses and stuff, and nothing basically was done. And, she took all the right steps. She continued to go to the RA. She continued to talk to the ACD and CD of the building at that time. She didn't retaliate or anything like that. And she did, again, everything right. And nothing was done. He wasn't punished. She ended up moving out of the dorm, of the room, and moving into a different room. So yeah, this poem came from that. I don't know how that transition kind of happened, but I was just so frustrated. I felt like, if the roles were reversed, there would be a lot harsher punishment. There would be more accountability. So I was just really frustrated, and yeah, this is a poem I wrote as a result. Again, not really talking about the situation, but I just started talking about police brutality in general. So yeah, the officer aims the gun at my temple like the barrel was made just for me. I begin to spew fun facts about myself like church hymn on Sunday morning. I am a twin. So if you kill me in cold blood, my other half will never be whole again. My friend, is in the National Guard, and I want to be able to tell her in person how proud I am that she's following her dreams. I'm a college student, majoring in social work. My goal is to break the chains that the stigma of mental health has placed on my people. So if you shoot me, how will I help brown people feel better about themselves? I usually don't share personal information like this. I take pride in my privacy, but this is the only way you'll see me as human and not as an animal. I wish my skin didn't trigger you so much. You act out of a bias that you didn't even know that was buried deep inside of you, like funeral caskets with white privilege sprinkled on top. I feel sorry for you. You shoot people like me to feel better about yourself. You have all this built up aggression and confusion. The only way you can make sense of it is to use my blood to create a bar graph of your prejudice. I just want to live, officer. And funny enough, that was the end of the piece. I wrote this piece before quarantine happened. It was a few days before. And I was just waiting to perform it. I was yes, I'm going to say this poem until I get a stage and a platform and stuff. And then, over quarantine and stuff like that, the George Floyd murder happened. And I was this is literally the perfect piece to describe that situation, to describe how people of color are feeling, how frustrated we are. So, yeah, I feel like that's how we all feel in a nutshell. So, my next piece is about my period. It is a lot of men in this room. I hope this doesn't make you uncomfortable, but you came from a woman, so you're just going to have to deal with it. But this is I wanted to make this series because it's a series of, new pieces, and it's a series of older pieces, but I just want to make it a little bit more personal. Sometimes it's hard being a woman. I know people don't, know that, or some people don't know that, but it's hard, and, we got to go through a lot, so just make sure. I got special ladies in your life. Please be nice to her, because we go through a lot, mentally, emotionally, physically. So I wrote this poem because I was just over my menstrual cycle. I was over it. I'm I don't want them anymore. I just really don't want them. So, yeah, this is a survival guide to your period. So this is entitled My Period. It would be so nice if our periods came with instructions, like, warning, all your favorite jeans will be ruined at the most inconvenient times. Your moods will change at the drop of a hat. In order to prepare for this, make sure tissues, a great playlist, and a supportive friend is on speed dial. And some side effects may include cramps that are designed to feel like a garbage truck is sleeping on top of your stomach. So make sure the heating pad and painkillers are close. Also, you'll have an abnormal craving for chocolate at 3 a.m. in the morning. Side note, I realize that you're a struggling college student, so budget accordingly. Thank you. That is the end of my period poem. I'm sure there'll be more period poems in the future. So, my next piece is entitled Women. I was inspired because, as y'all can tell, I am a woman, identify as a woman, and I just wanted to kind of shed light on the experiences of women, on experiences of Black women in particular, but women in general. We're kept out of textbooks, we're not given credit, it's all these things. So I just really wanted to again, just shed light on our experiences, give us a voice, and just make people aware, because again, it's hard being a woman. Some women experience so many different forms of oppression all at the same time, and that makes it really difficult to function. So again, this poem is entitled Women. I was taught to be silent from birth. Being a black woman in America, and I'm often overlooked, not valued, and I'm more susceptible to violence. I'm left at the center of the crossroads of intersectionality, where I experience racism and sexism all at the same time. I wish being at the doctor's office didn't feel like a game of chess. I have to pick the best strategy to explain my pain to my doctor in hopes of being taken seriously. Because having symptoms of a heart attack isn't worthy enough of medical treatment. And people wonder why we walk with chips super glued to our shoulders. I'm tired of being labeled as angry, as loud, as bossy, as just a body with no sum attached to it. I am somebody. I wish I was comfortable in every room I walked in. Before I pass the threshold, my skin is the only thing people see. They don't see the high school athlete, the championship slam poet winner, a twin. Despite this, I still walk with God's grace. My chin is up so high it's impossible for my crown to fall. I have the love of Jesus pumping through my veins. My reflection is God smiling back at me. And that is what keeps me going. So thank you. That is the end of the Woman in Peace. Again, be an ally for women, support women, please, especially women of color. So I think this is going to be probably my favorite piece of the whole series. It's called Write Me a Poem. That's what I titled it. As a poet, or as artists know in general, I don't know if other artists experience this, but poets, I experience a lot. People be like, why don't you write me a poem? When are you going to be done with the poem you wrote me? Blah, 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 blah. So, questions like that. And people just don't understand that it's like, it takes time to write poems. It takes time to create art. And sometimes I can create it quickly, and sometimes I can't. It takes a long time. It took me over a year to write a poem about someone. And then as I mentioned earlier with my twin sister, that took me 10 minutes. So it varies. So I wrote a poem in response to people who asked me to write them poems. Maybe this would probably just be the only poem I write you. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe, I don't know. But again, this poem is called Write Me a Poem. When people ask me why haven't I wrote them a poem yet, I laugh and say with sarcasm dripping from my mouth, why haven't you built a house from scratch yet? And I know this is a funny analogy, but we have to have a strong enough foundation in order for these words to be concrete. You realize that poems are like babies, and they require a lot of time, love, and attention. And right now, I feel like I have 7 kids I'm taking care of, and frankly, I don't have enough room on my fine china for an 8th one right now. In conclusion, I'm just not inspired by anything we've talked about. Thank you. So that's the end of that piece. So anybody who thinks about asks me, for a poem for their birthday or for Mother's Day or something, just refer back to this piece. And yeah. But yeah, this is my favorite poem probably of the whole series. Okay. My next piece is called Diaspora. So I was doing my homework in Wales. I live in Wales. I was doing my homework. And I was reading it, and I was just frustrated, and I didn't like what I was reading and all this stuff, and I'll explain more in the poem. But I was just like, I have to write about this, because again, women in our history is kept out of textbooks and stuff like that, and this was referring to the women, black women, or women slaves, and their experience and stuff. And I had no idea that this was happening. I don't know how I didn't know or why I didn't assume, but reading it, it just made me so, again, frustrated. It made me feel for the women during that time, during slavery. I couldn't even imagine being a woman at that time, experiencing slavery and then getting sexually assaulted and getting your children taken away from you and all this stuff. So I wanted to just kind of talk about those experiences. Again, wasn't around during that time, but just want to give my own interpretation of my homework that day and my feelings. So, poem is called Diaspora. I almost cried while doing my homework the other day. The words on the page seemed to be mocking my body, my people, and my womanhood. I was so triggered that I'd rather be watching Central Park 5 than to be sitting in the Wells computer lab shackled to my seat. Now I know what a black body feels like when an officer is present, or when another black girl is labeled as runaway instead of missing. When the Walmart employee is trying to memorize my footsteps as if my skin didn't already match the stereotypes that's going through their head. My homework read that during slavery, black women were only seen as breeders with no rights to their bodies. They received no leave of absence after carrying new life in their wombs for 9 months. Their breasts were full of fatty acid and sustenance, but their newborns lay at the end of the cotton roll or on their backs. No one had any sympathy for the bleeding mothers who were sometimes beaten into labor. I'm so honored to come from such resilience. The women in my bloodline fought in rebellions alongside men, led hundreds of slaves to salvation, created spaces of sanctuary in a world that only saw them as profit, more as profit and less as people. I hope my ancestors are listening to this poem. I wonder if they can feel their spirits dancing between the stanzas. I hope their faces are glowing like the North Star, because this moment right here is what they fought for, and I intend on making them proud. So thank you. That's that piece. So my next piece is entitled Race. I wrote this like a while ago. It was just kind of a question or thing I was thinking about when I talked to people. I said white people in the poem, but some people, it's more than just white people probably, but not knowing what is going on with like racial tension and social justice, and just kind of living in a bubble and hitting me with an excuse that they just didn't know or they don't see it. So I just wrote a piece about that. It's very short because I just kind of wanted it to be more of a conversation starter. I wanted it to be just something people can kind of, just use to navigate conversations and think about, okay, did they see it? Did they recognize it? Are they supporting this group? Are they not supporting this group? So yeah, this is called Race. When white people say they didn't notice how different races are being treated, I swallow a dry oppression pill to stop the tears from falling. And I wonder just for a second what it feels like not to be remembered of being black, or being reminded of being black every second of the day. What it is like to not feel less than. And again, sometimes I write short pieces. So that is the end of that piece. I did wanted to just say something too. A few days ago, we lost a fellow Warhawk. He graduated already, but his name was Purcell Pearson, and everyone called him Percy. And I didn't really know him that well. I just saw him with his groups of friends all the time around campus and BSU stuff. And when I found out that he passed, I was, of course, really sad. He graduated. He had so much going for himself. He was so young. He was, a black man. I was so happy. But I just kind of wanted to talk about that for a little bit. So when every time I interacted with him, it was very positive. It was, he has so much to give in conversations and stuff like that when I did have the honor of interacting with him. So if there's anyone watching who was impacted by his death, because I barely knew him and I was, still sad. I can't even imagine people who were related to him, who were really close with him. I am so sorry for your loss. But Percy, you will definitely be missed. You were a gem, you were a light. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of just come and say those words. And I'm here and praying for all those people being affected by his death on this day. But yeah, that is all the pieces I have. Yeah. Thank you. Y'all have a great rest of your night. Y'all walk off.